Hey guys, it's Tixie here and welcome back to the channel. So I've had my hands on Modern Warfare 2 guys now for a week. I've played a lot of the game, I've hit max level, I've used a lot of the different weapons, played all of the maps across many different modes, and it felt like a good time to kind of sit down and give you guys my early thoughts on how the game is and kind of what I think of it. And I know that 1 week into a 2-year cycle game guys is still very early on, but I think as somebody who's played Call of Duty for a lot of years, I feel like you kind of have an idea of what needs to be changed, but you kind of know what probably is and isn't going to be changed. So it makes it a little bit easier to make these kind of assumptions. But obviously, like I said, I played the game for a week. I didn't just come on here day one and say I hated it. So yeah, as always guys, I'm sure there'll be some of you that agree with me and some of you that disagree, but just remember guys, it is just my opinion. Love to hear what you guys think down in the comment section, but respect my opinion and I'll respect yours too. So I want to start off guys with the kind of 3 main things that we all knew about and the things that I don't believe are going to change in my opinion, but I feel like I wanted to just touch on them very briefly. So that's obviously the new perk system. I understand that they wanted to do something different, they wanted to do something new, but I feel like the perk system's always been one of those fundamentals in Call of Duty that it's always kind of worked. We've seen a few different variations across the years. I don't think this variation was needed. It forces you to do certain things, forces you to play a certain way. It would have maybe worked a little bit better if you could put any perk in any kind of slot, but I guess what they've tried to avoid there is people overusing maybe the more powerful perks, sort of like Ghost and stuff. So for me, it wasn't needed, but I don't think they're going to change it. They've gone to the effort for this new system, but I would have loved to have just seen a kind of a normal perk system in this game. Obviously, no Ninja is a big thing as well. Ninja not being a perk. Dead Silence returns as a field upgrade. This one to me just makes no sense, but I don't know if they're going to change it. I don't know if it's even worth moaning about, but they did this in Modern Warfare 2019. Lots of people moaned about it, and 3 years later, here we are in the same situation with the same thing again. So, in my opinion, one of the worst things they've done with this game, but whether it will change or not, I don't know. Obviously, Vanguard, Sledgehammer, they put it in last year after not having it there initially. Hopefully, Infinity will do the same, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. And then the third one, guys, is obviously no red dots on the minimap. This is probably the lesser of these 3 for me, but it's still a little bit frustrating. It makes, what's the point in using silencers, really? But also, sometimes it's just so confusing when you've got your own team firing and the enemy team firing, and you've just got no idea what's going on. So, I wanted to get those 3 things out of the way. We knew that was going to be the case from the beta. It's still the case. I don't think any of them are going to change, but we'll have to see. So, in no particular order, guys, going into kind of some of the other things that I don't really like or things that frustrated me. So obviously there was a lot of scan and repair issues on day one, especially if you were playing in parties. Now I will admit this has definitely improved. I'm still getting the odd scan and repair issue, but that happened on Cold War, it happened on Vanguard. I don't want to call out Modern Warfare 2 and Infinity War too much for it. If it's still doing it in 3 to 6 months, maybe it's still a problem, then I'll be a bit more frustrated. But I think for now, the odd scan and repair issue I can get over, and it does feel like they have improved it from day one when you're playing in parties. I don't know if it's just me, but the game does feel a little bit buggy at times. Initially I thought my PC was struggling, but it just feels like sometimes in the menus it just lags a bit, and almost every time I first load up the game, like my first game, like lags and like the frames drop for like the first minute, and then it settles down. Really weird. I don't think it's a PC problem. I mean, I haven't got an ultra PC, but I also haven't got the worst PC in the world. It's proven to me that it can run this game fine, so I don't know why it's like that, but yeah, the game just does feel a little bit buggy in places. Obviously no barracks is a bit annoying, no leaderboards, no combat record. I mean, in a way that's probably beneficial for me at the moment because I'm absolutely terrible at this game. I reckon my stats are probably some of the worst I've ever had in Call of Duty, but ultimately this is stuff that everyone loves to see. Everyone loves to see their game time, everyone likes to see their stats and see what they've done with certain weapons. It's something that's been in Call of Duty for years, very simple but very beneficial, and I'm sure it will come, but why it's not there from release I don't know. The multiplayer maps, I'm sort of on the fence for this one, guys. I feel like if you're being nice, you could probably say 50% of them are playable and the other 50% of them are not that great. I just feel like the problem in this game is that there's some really terrible maps, and I think in a way some of the good maps in this game aren't maybe as good as they seem. They're just not as bad as the terrible ones. There's a lot of maps in this game where there's just so many areas where you can get shot from different directions. It's almost like Infinity Ward want to make it harder for you to stay alive. They've done everything in their power this year, it would seem, to make the game a little bit more challenging. And I think just similar to kind of Vanguard, not having that kind of map voting is just frustrating. When there's terrible maps, you've constantly got to back out, if you don't like a map. So it's a little bit annoying. But I will admit that one of the biggest issues in this game for me at the moment is the spawn system. The spawn system is absolutely broken in every game mode. It doesn't make any sense. Some maps it's worse than others. I think like the Embassy map has got probably some of the worst spawns I've ever seen in COD history. But that probably isn't helping with the maps. I think if the spawns actually worked as you would expect them to work, you know, it would probably make some of the maps better. But it's like you've got domination, hardpoint, kill confirmed. I can't tell the difference between the spawns in either three of those game modes, and normally those three game modes would have completely different spawns that work for those modes. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. The spawn system for me probably one of the biggest things that needs looking at and fine-tuning sooner rather than later, because there's just too much randomness on the map at the moment. Feels to me in a way that there's not much variation in game modes. I think a lot of that, like I say, does come a little bit from the spawn system, but also the lack of game modes. I mean, you know, you've got headquarters and hardpoint, which is technically the same game mode. You've got team deathmatch and kill confirm, which is technically the same game mode, you know, but just very slight differences. Then you've kind of got search and destroy if you want to play something, you know, play no respawn, and then you've kind of got free for all. And outside of that, you know, you've got the new game modes, which, you know, prisoner rescue and knockout. They to me, I appreciate they've tried to do something new, but they don't look like game modes you want to grind. And I just can't believe that a game mode like Control is not there. I mean, it's in private match, but it's not playable within pubs, and that's just really frustrating. You know, you need, the more game modes the better, the more variety. You know, I knew Demolition wasn't going to be there, but the fact that Control's not going to be there, and the fact that Control's meant to be the third game mode for the CDL this year, yeah, just not good enough in my opinion, and they need to add some more modes in sooner rather than later. The gameplay is very slow. I think a lot of that is because of the way they've built it. There's not really much reason to rush in this game. There's not really much reason to play fast, because you do get punished for it. You know, no red dots on the minimap, no ghost off the rip, no ninja, slow aim down sight time, slow sprint to fire time, kill streaks are slow. You know, calling in UAVs is just so slow. It's so ridiculous, the little animation that it does. The same for dead silence. You want to pop it and go, and you pull up this stupid remote and it takes a couple of seconds, and it's just frustrating. The hip fire when you're stim shot and then using dead silence is really inconsistent. Health regeneration is slow. Everything in this game just screams slow. And you know, ultimately I understand that they're trying to build the games in a certain way now to cater more to casual players, but you know, stuff like having no ninja and no ghost off the rip and no red dots on the minimap, surely that is enough without all this other ridiculously slow stuff that they're putting in the game, and just reducing that skill gap and just causing silly little things to happen. And yeah, they really need to look at the animations for calling kill streaks and dead silence and stuff, because right now it's just way too slow and it's absolutely ridiculous. Footsteps, to be fair, have improved, guys, from the beta, but it's still, for me, you know, you can still sound whore people, you know, and get sound whored. You know, if you know how to use a headset, this game, you don't really have to do anything, you just hear people coming. So they have improved it, but it's still, you know, it's still no difference. People can still hear you if you're running around and they're not moving, they're going to hear you coming. Obviously they've streamlined the camo system this year, which I think is actually a really good thing. The only thing I will say is I think when it comes to unlocking certain camos and unlocking you know, certain weapons, I appreciate that they've tried to do something different where you've got to use certain different weapons to unlock certain things, but ultimately for the casual players and people that they're trying to cater to, if you haven't got all the time in the world to play Call of Duty, maybe you're at work, you come home, you've only got a couple of hours a night, do you really want to have to go and use 5-6 different weapons and level them up to a certain point just so you can unlock a red dot on an AR? Just seems a bit stupid to me. I think they've tried something new there, but I think it would have been better to just keep the attachments and the camos to each weapon, and you know, it would have been better that way. But that's just my opinion. But the fact that they've streamlined the camo system is definitely a lot better. I think it's really hard to get anything going in this game. You know, there's so many things that go against you. The skill-based matchmaking is working exactly as you would expect. I'm not going to sit here and slag SBMM off. We know it's going to be there. You know, it's always going to be frustrating at the start of the game when there's more players playing it and everybody's trying to learn it, and it's just ultra sweaty and you don't have all the good guns, and you know, it's just an absolute mess. But yeah, most games at the moment just feel very dead and boring. You know, it's kind of like when you've got a game that's got no skill gap, and then you're putting people probably 85-90% of the time against players of their skill level. Nobody's popping off. Everybody's just trying to go positive. Sometimes you go maybe one positive, sometimes you go neutral, sometimes you go, everyone's just battling to try and go sort of neutral. It makes the games a little bit dead and boring. Then you get the odd games where you get absolutely battered, and then you get the odd games where you do a little bit better, and it makes you think that you actually like the game maybe more than you do. The in-between game time is way too fast. Like, I know that people maybe don't want to sit in the lobby for 10-15 minutes, but for me, sometimes you haven't even finished seeing what you've unlocked, what your rewards were from the previous game, and you're loading into the next game. So if you want to make a class setup change, you almost have to back out, or obviously, you can pause when you're in the game, but ultimately, you're wasting time at the start of the game if you do that. So it's much easier to back out, and I think that in between game time needs to be slowed down a little bit. That's probably one thing that would be okay if it was a bit slower, but ultimately, that just needs looking at, because it's just ridiculous going into a game so fast. Kill streaks seem a little bit useless at the moment, probably because of the perk system in a way, and a lot of the maps, there's a lot of places that you can hide, but I feel like Cold Blood is getting a lot of use, and it also seems really easy to take streaks out this year, so I think you're probably better off just running UAV, counter UAV, advanced UAV in my opinion. Talking of UAVs, I do feel like they're a little bit glitchy. Sometimes you'll have somebody on your radar, you'll kill them, but then even after you've killed them, their radar pings one more time. Starting to get used to it a little bit and expecting it, but sometimes that just confuses you. You're so locked in, and then you think, oh, suddenly there's another player there. It's not. It's the player you've just killed, and then maybe it gets you killed by someone else because you're not quite ready. The reload cancel was a bit frustrating. I did manage to do this yesterday, but I think it is pretty much not in the game. I don't know how I did it yesterday. Maybe I just got lucky, and I just think ultimately, guys, I just expected a little bit more from this game. I'm not saying that I didn't. I'm not going to sit and pretend I expected it to be the greatest game ever. I kind of knew some of these issues were going to be there, but I just feel like it's one of those things now that they've got so many developers working on each game, and it just feels like they're stretching too thin, trying to do too many different things. They're probably focused 100% on Warzone 2 at the moment. Then they'll be focused on the DMZ release, and I think right now, multiplayer, they've put it together. It needs some work. Is it going to get the work? I don't know. It probably will at some point. Is it going to get it as soon as it needs it? I don't know. So I think overall, guys, I understand why they've tried to do some new things in this game. Ultimately, I think the gunplay is quite fun. I don't hate the movement. The TTK is quite fast, but that doesn't really bother me. The connection's very good in a lot of games, and I genuinely do feel like this game has got potential, but I don't know whether they're going to make the significant changes that they need to. Probably for me, Dead Silence as a perk and the spawn system. I think those two things getting changed would change this game dramatically. Skill-based matchmaking is always going to be the main factor when the game first comes out, when everyone's playing it. But I think over time, we've learned in the previous Call of Duty, skill-based matchmaking becomes less of an issue once less people are playing. More content will be added to this game, and hopefully the game does get fine-tuned, because I feel like it does have the potential there, but I am a little bit concerned about the longevity of this game if they do not make significant changes to certain things, because right now, I'm grinding camos. A lot of people are grinding camos. When you're grinding camos, you can kind of switch your brain off a little bit. You're just trying to do the challenges. You're not fussed about how you're doing. But once you've got those camos, is the game enjoyable enough to just keep playing it beyond that? I don't know. So I have considered the fact that maybe I'm just getting old, guys. Maybe I'm just not as good at COD as I used to be. Maybe I expect too much from these games now. But we are going to stick with Modern Warfare 2, guys. But I am going to stop worrying about the content. I mean, ultimately, this game is completely different to Cold War. So many things are different, and things that are in Cold War that allow you to have those big gameplays, whereas in Modern Warfare 2, a lot of those things are not there, which means it's a lot more difficult, and obviously the gameplay is a lot more slower. And I'm just going to stop worrying about gameplays, guys, and just manage the expectations that we're going to be doing a lot of camo grinding here. That is the plan. I think we will do the camo grind, but gameplays, they may come over time, but don't expect anything crazy, don't expect any nukes. And yeah, ultimately we're going to do the camo grind, I believe, but outside of that, the core game definitely needs some work, or I think it will become very boring very quickly once camos are done. But just to keep you guys in the loop, we are keeping to the 2-month plan, guys, but obviously the original 2-month plan was to see how Modern Warfare 2 went. I think for now the 2-month plan is more going to be focused on my YouTube, and going into 2023 I'll be making a big decision on whether or not I want to continue with this, whether I want to maybe continue with it but be a little bit more chill, or whether I want to give it up completely. Those things are going to be decided over the next couple of months, guys. I am definitely returning to work in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so I think that will add another factor to it. And obviously just seeing how Modern Warfare 2 goes over the next few months, whether they make significant changes or not, I think we'll have a big decision on what direction we go to in 2023. But as always, guys, I really appreciate the early support on Modern Warfare 2, considering I've had a bit of a slow start. Hopefully you guys have found today's video useful and interesting. If you have, guys, please do hit the like button down below, and like I said, I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you are brand new around here and want to find your way back for more, guys, please do consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.